Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.net, and unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a few days. I'm told the audio and the video are good. Thank you, Raging Zoomer. We got the unauthorized chat live, complete with super chats. We have the D-Live chat rolling. Nibmeister confirms that the audio and video are good on unauthorized, so that's good. So I joined a new platform today. I was actually, I guess technically it was yesterday because today is actually tomorrow over here. But I think a lot of you will be happy to know that the SSH book is coming along well. I'm already 30,000 words into it, having just begun it after Christmas. I was waiting really to get the Sea of Skulls done, which I've done, as some of you know, and still doing some cleanup there. The typos and all that are all I've got all the typos in errata that I've been sent in. There's one issue I need to check up. A continuity issue relating to one of the legions, just getting that sorted out. Once I've checked off on that, we'll get the file updated on Archhaven, and then we'll also start laying out the print edition. So that's coming along nicely, and I was planning to have the SSH book be about 60,000 words. I didn't want to have it be too long. Books that people actually read, that mainstream audiences actually read, are generally not 900 pages, nor does it need to be that long. But it's very clear that the book is necessary. It's necessary for there to be some sort of definitive anchor that people can refer to, whether they accept me as any sort of authority or not is really irrelevant. The point is that at least there's something that people can point to, and this particular book will have a little bit more implicit credibility coming as it does from the author of not only the SSH but also the person responsible for recognizing and coining the terms for the profiles of the gamma male, the sigma male, and the omega male. Although I think omegas were somebody might have come up with that one first. I don't know. It's so obvious that I don't really bother bringing that up. Again, it doesn't matter. As I've said many times, it doesn't matter where the term comes from. It doesn't matter where the ideas come from, except in that sometimes when there is confusion, when there's multiple definitions for the same thing, then perhaps it's useful to be able to say, hey, this specific definition, this specific idea, at least has precedence and is also more widely accepted. So, but the key thing is there's got to be a book out there. There's got to be something out there. Now, in keeping with that, as you all know, I stopped doing Alpha Game, I think in 2016 or 2017, mostly because I found it just far too tedious to deal with the incessant, what am I, sensei? Tell me what I am. At the time, it just seemed so pointless and stupid and unnecessary. Well, human nature hasn't changed, but I have seen, and you have seen, we have all seen that pointless and stupid and unnecessary is the human condition. Rainline said, regarding game, what needed to be said had been said by 2016. Yes and no. It's been said, but there's still obviously a lot of young men that either don't accept it, don't get it. Um, if you look at the number of young men that are pursuing women, not just for marriage, but even for physical relations, it's dropping considerably. Now, that is not indicative of a young male culture that does not need game. Now, maybe they have to be convinced that they would even like to use game or have any utility for it, but it's clear that we're not suffering from a surfeit of young men who have mastered the concepts or even accept or would recognize them. Now, obviously, some of it's out there, but there's a big difference between being vaguely familiar with terms and actually understanding and internalizing and being able to successfully apply those concepts to benefit yourself and others. Raging Zoomer says, would there be any utility in distinguishing between sigmas who are confused with alphas versus what could be coined an omega leaning sigma, or no? No, absolutely not. There's none whatsoever. Nobody confuses a sigma with an omega. I mean, that that sounds like an omega fantasy, kind of similar to the gammas who are like, I think I'm an alpha. Oh no, no, I think I'm a sigma because, I feel like I am. I mean, it would be difficult to more completely fail to grasp the core concept of the SSH than to think that your opinion has anything to do with it. People keep commenting on the cask back there. The reason it's on the edge is it's perfectly stable. It's not about to fall off. Um, Anthony says the cask is looking at its big brother that isn't allowed to jump on the table. I only wish. Actually, I did. I did get my cousin something. I did get him a better cask for Christmas um, than than mine. The reason it's better is it's square, and so it sits up. It's not actually a cask; it's more of a box, but it sits up straight and it holds 5 liters instead of just three. So um, the pour. It's on the edge so that you can put the wine glass right up to it, and the pour spout puts it right in the glass. You don't have to move the cask around or anything. Um, although I now actually have, it's kind of pointless because I have to pick it up and tilt it now because the 3 liter bag inside is nearly empty. So, oh well. Anyhow, um, the I mean, I guess what I would ask you, Raging Zoomer, is why do you think that there would be any need whatsoever for that kind of distinction? I mean, obviously, I have my own ideas, but I'm curious to know what your rationale would be for thinking that there might be uh, some utility in distinguishing between those two things. Um, again, I think as I've been writing the book, I came up with a new term of preference for what we've been calling the various ranks and behavioral patterns. And both are accurate. There's nothing wrong with referring to the alpha rank, to the gamma behavioral pattern, etc. But I think probably a term that would have more utility on a regular basis is profile. Because people understand what profiles are. They understand that um, they're very useful in understanding and describing people, but they don't have that same uh, intrinsic relation to a concept of superiority. Now the problem is that it's a social thing. Rank does matter. Raging Zoomer says it's a dumb idea. I was thinking of an alcoholic lawyer I know who isn't gamma at all, but doesn't work hard like a delta. However, his physical ailments make him omega. Look, this really isn't that hard. I have no idea why it's so difficult for people to grasp the concept. Okay. Uh, a, he says he's respected in some ways, so I don't know. No, it has nothing to do. Sigma has nothing to do with respect. Okay. Sigma is an alpha to most people. You know, everybody thinks a sigma is an alpha. The reason that the distinction is necessary is because people are always looking to alphas to fulfill alpha responsibilities and alpha duties. Imagine this. Think about Clint Eastwood in one of his roles as the uh, lone gunman who wanders into town, doesn't really want to even talk to anyone particularly. He's just there on business, or whatever his business happens to be. And then he gets drawn into a conflict by somebody, maybe a gamma, maybe an alpha, and he takes care of his business, right? Now imagine that all the townspeople start walking up to him and behaving towards him like he's the godfather at the wedding of his daughter. Doggone it. One of the reasons I hadn't streamed in the past few days is because I was waiting for my voice to come back so that I'd be able to speak properly without coughing. So we'll see how it goes. Anyhow, the point is that would never work. Can you even imagine somebody going up to Clint Eastwood and he's sitting there like this, and they said, "Godfather, I have a problem. I want to sing in a movie, but the producer doesn't like me and won't let me sing a song in the movie that I want to sing a song in." You know, an alpha looks at the guy and says, "Okay, I've got a responsibility for this guy. I'm going to take care of it, but you're going to have to do me, you're going to owe me one. You're going to have to do something for me, which will benefit my hierarchy, you know, um, you know, the sigma, it doesn't even make sense." Imagine, I mean, you realize, whereas the Godfather is hearing his subordinate out, deciding whether he's going to solve his problem for him or not, but at no point in time is it inappropriate for the alpha to be tending to his flock. That's what he does. That's what he has to do. The Clint Eastwood Sigma is thinking, can I shoot this guy? What the hell is he doing even asking me this? And so that's why the distinction is necessary, because far too many people look at the Sigma and they really expect him to do something that he fundamentally cannot do. He can try, but he's not very likely to be anywhere nearly as successful as even a not particularly strong alpha. You know, all of our operations, Castalia, unauthorized, etc., suffer tremendously and fall short of what they could be because of my limitations. There's no question about this. And yet I can't have a conversation with an organization that I've got some connection to without them trying to put me in charge of it. It's flattering in some ways, but it's also maddening, especially if you happen to understand your limitations. If you happen to understand, hey, this is really not what I do. And so, stuff related to the sociosexual hierarchy is way more important and way more significant than what you are, than what I am, than what he is. It's way more important than, well, if I can get myself to be perceived like this, then I can access higher tier women. It's way too important because it deals with your ability to succeed in the workforce. It involves the ability of your organization to either succeed or fail or completely implode. I mean, the fate of billion-dollar organizations depends on this stuff. The fate of churches and universities depends on this stuff. Ladumba says, here are real-life examples of sigmas and alphas. Trump is an alpha. Xi and Putin are sigmas. Without question. Without question. Putin is definitely a sigma. If you look at, first of all, if you look at his career, if you look at the way that he behaves, the way he speaks, the way he has goals that are opaque even to the people that follow him. Putin doesn't have, I mean, he's popular in Russia, but who is Putin's right-hand man? Who are Putin's bravos? Who are the guys who have been around Putin for decades? Swedish Trash Panda says, the most enraging thing is when people call Putin stupid. The man is a lawyer. Forget lawyer. The man made his bones in intelligence, if I recall correctly. You can be evil and be in military intelligence, but it's difficult to. Anthony says that Putin's essays also scream Sigma. Yeah, there's no question. He doesn't have a cult. There's no cult of Putin, despite the fact that he's been in power for 20 years. There was a cult around Trump before he even got elected. Even Putin's irregularities with regards to his wife and so forth, and the fact that he's fathered like 4 children with that pretty gymnast who's you know, lives in seclusion and so forth. Pillow Vendor points out Putin's also an outsider. He's from St. Petersburg, in a Moscow, in the power center of Moscow. Yeah, and so it's very very helpful to understand the difference between a Trump and a Xi. Xi is also pretty obviously a Sigma. He's got his mission, like his personal mission, the way that he hates corruption. You know, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm absolutely convinced that there will be reunification of Taiwan Island with the mainland is because she is a Sigma, and he has clearly made that, you know, one of his two primary missions. The other one being rooting out the corruption in the Chinese Communist Party. And so, um, as a Swedish Trash Panda says, she feels too much like a wannabe Mao. No, he has nothing. He has nothing to do. He's very dissimilar to Mao. Um, Mao was far less intelligent than she. Don't forget Lee Kuan Yew, who is probably the greatest politician and one of the greatest political minds of the 20th century, when asked uh, not long before he died, he was asked which world leader do you think is the most intelligent and capable? And he said, it's not even close. She is head and shoulders above everyone else. So keep that in mind, especially in light of the respect that one has to have for Vladimir Putin, or even for Benjamin Netanyahu. I read one of Benjamin Netanyahu's books, the book he wrote on terrorism. I read it in high school. He's a smart guy. He's an evil guy, I think. I don't know if he always was. I always thought he was a good guy back in the day. After reading his book and so forth, it seems like he took a ticket at some point and became pretty corrupt. But um, but if someone like Lee Kuan Yew, who knew Mao, who knew Deng, and says that she is smarter than all of them, I think we have to at least take it seriously. Sunlight says, recently more military uprooting by Xi. Yeah, he purged like 9 of the highest ranking generals. Some are saying it's corruption. Others are saying that this is preparatory to war, which is quite possible. I mean, remember, we're positing that Xi is extremely intelligent. So if you're extremely intelligent, you're probably able to do, before going to war, what most leaders find themselves having to do after going to war, which is getting rid of the generals who won't fight. The classic example being Lincoln getting rid of McClellan and replacing him with Grant. That's possible. I have Sunlight says, I've read both takes, no way to tell on my end. Yeah, I have no idea either. Yeah. I doubt it's just basic corruption though, because I think that would have already been taken care of. If it was just part, that they got rid of something like 88,000 officials, ranking all the way up to the Chinese equivalent of a Supreme Court justice. Um, the idea that they would just happen to miss 9 very high-ranking generals, I'm very dubious. Thoughts on Millet? Millet is a globalist creature. Um, he talks libertarian, but libertarianism is ultimately a form of globalism and is economically in service to the globalists. On the global level, libertarians are just as bad as communists. I know that's hard for us to imagine, but I think we have to, at this point, conclude that it's true. Any real life examples of sigmas with sub-average IQ? Not offhand. I mean, maybe. I haven't seen the movie, but Uncle John's Band has a good article on the way that Dazed and Confused is a much better Hollywood take than usual on the SSH. And the character he identifies as a Sigma, who's basically a pot smoking guy, he might qualify. I don't remember his name. Alpha seems to be genetic. Is there a genetic sigma correlation? Well, my impression is that sigmas are potential alphas who were broken somehow, in some way. I hated the end, and I hated the obvious gamma take on the reason for Jason Dean's behavior and Heather's. But I think that in some ways, Jason Dean most clearly demonstrates the broken aspect of the sigma. Thank you, Rainline. Rainline says Pickford is the character from Dazed and Confused. So that would be my answer for the sigma with the sub-average IQ. It would be Pickford. But yeah, in general. But remember, we're dealing when we're talking about public figures and stuff. Anyone that we're going to talk about it, a gamma like Yuval Harari. Actually, he's lambda. Is very intelligent. The deltas, the alphas, everybody that we're going to talk about that we all know as a public figure are going to be of superior intelligence. Trump is a very smart guy. Putin's a very smart guy. She's a very smart guy. Hillary Clinton is a very smart girl, and Bill Clinton's a very smart guy. You have to be in general, to get at that level of successful influence. I mean, obviously, you can be a low IQ congresswoman from Atlanta who's been installed by the machine, but that's what it is. But if you look at a character like Jason Dean, or look at She. Why would I say, how could she be broken? Well, it's quite easy. His family was purged. He was canceled in a way that none of us can even imagine. And he was like living in a cave for 2 years before being rehabilitated. Just Big Bone says, hence the personal mission and that Sarah McLachlan song. Yeah, building a mystery. Building a mystery is probably the most informative ode to a sigma, ode to a real sigma from a woman. Which is interesting because I was reading an article that somebody posted on Social Galactic, and it said something like 32 examples of real sigma males or something like that, and it was so absurd. I mean, there was maybe one, maybe two indicators of possible sigmas. Most of the stuff was just like, hey, Here's a dorky gamma doing something stupid. Here's a random delta doing something romantic. It was like they somehow it was like the woman who wrote the article somehow translated that sigma means things that girls like. You know, that puppy, he's so cute and sigma. I mean, what the hell? Again, this is why we need the book. At least we have a way to point people to things, point people to something, and say, look, this is what you're saying is just flat out nonsense. Um, because many human beings are narcissistic, and if you think about what narcissist actually refers to, it means looking into a mirror and seeing yourself, looking into something, looking into a lake and seeing yourself. What what people who are trying to redefine sigma, and it's the same thing that happened when game first hit the public consciousness and people became familiar with the term alpha, is you started seeing people redefining the mirror. Yeah, I mean it was downright funny. Eric Raymond, the 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 programming demigod, who's very smart, very talented, very accomplished. I don't think anyone would confuse him with an alpha ever. He wrote a moderately. It wasn't a complete wall of text to give him his due, but it was a fairly long thing explaining how he is a natural alpha, and and he has proof because he's picked up women at science fiction conventions and Renaissance fairs. Um, I mean, he's not like those alphas who pick girls up in the clubs. He's never done that. I mean, you have to have been to a Renaissance fair or to a science fiction convention to understand that you're not dealing with top tier or tier two or even tier three women at these things, you know. Um, but somehow, when he heard about the concept of the alpha and the natural, he promptly redefined it using a mirror. Now, it's a bit ironic that uh, I occasionally get accused, usually by the usual suspects. Um, I get accused of inventing this new term that would make you look cool. You know, and essentially what they're doing is accusing me of a modified form of this mirror redefinition, which of course doesn't even make sense. I wasn't redefining anything. I was coining a new term altogether for a observed but different profile that was confused with alpha, right? And so, um, you know, why would I do that when everybody kept confusing me with an alpha? And I'm not talking just about girls and that sort of thing. I mean, I really wish people would, get their minds off of intersexual relations in relation to the hierarchy. Yes, that's involved, but it's a small part of it, and it's a relatively unimportant part of it. I mean, obviously, it's an aspect of the human condition that a lot of people are absolutely and totally obsessed with. That's why we have so many books on the subject. That's why Cosmopolitan magazine was regarded as the Bible for two generations of women. it's a subject that is always of massive interest to people. It's probably why the SSH book will end up selling more than all of the books I've sold combined. You know, um, it won't surprise. I mean, it's literally why I created the Sigma game on Substack. Um, if somebody wants to put the link in both chats, I'd appreciate it. Um, you can get the link from my blog. It's on the left sidebar. Uh, but I created that Substack because I'm going to uh, how I wanted a central point of discussion for the book for people that are not part of the unauthorized Castalia VP community. I wanted people to be able to come fresh to the stuff, to not necessarily. Thank you, Slapweasel. The link is there in the D Live chat. Anthony, if you could put, or somebody, if you could put one up in the uh, unauthorized chat, that would be good. But I wanted there to be a place where people could ask questions, um, where people could uh, access some of the old posts from Alpha Game that I'm gonna bring some of them over, generally with some commentary. Like today, it was interesting to go back and visit a 2012 post about the effect that more women in higher education than men was having on the marriage rates. I identified back in 2011. I think I posted it on VP. I need to look it up, but Susan Walsh and I. Thank you, Cactus Eater Bear. Um, you know, I, I expected that it was going to continue to have a negative effect. The more women in higher university, in higher education, combined with the number of men not going into it, was going to have a negative effect on women's ability to have relationships, because what it meant was that already in 2011, 1/3 of women in college had no chance of a hypergamous relationship. They were going to be there. And so now looking back 12 years later, 2012 article, 2024, now we can see that the problem indeed has gotten worse, and that trying to shame guys into having relationships wasn't going to work, because you can't shame a young man into a relationship with a woman who doesn't want to have one with him in the first place. You know, it's the women that are the problem here, because a college educated girl quite reasonably expects to be with a college educated man. She values her education. She does not respect a guy who doesn't have a college degree, because it's something that she values. He is literally lower value than her. And it doesn't matter how much smarter he is. As a general rule, people don't value intelligence. They might envy it, but correctly, they don't think that it makes you a more valuable or better person. In fact, the higher your intelligence, the more people tend to suspect you of being up to no good. Or at least being threatening to them in some way that they do not want to countenance. Sir Hamster says, got us ankle biter already on that first article. Sir Hamster, would you mind copy that and paste it, if it's not a wall of text. If it's a wall of text, just grab the salient point and put it in here. I'm just curious. Let's all enjoy this historic first ankle biter. I'm intending to let them ankle bite all they want. Obviously, if there's excessive vulgarity or something, then we'll have to do some moderation. But I think that one of the best ways of illustrating gamma is to just let them do their gamma thing. Cactus Eater Bear has a great analogy. Um, it's like a woman not wanting to date a guy shorter than her. He can beat her arm wrestling, but she doesn't care. You know, the point is not whether he's stronger. She's not attracted because he's too short. She wants somebody who's taller. Yeah. Um, a woman, the average woman doesn't care if the man is more intelligent. She wants him to have at least as good an education as her, preferably better. Okay, here's the comment. So shame doesn't work, right? That's now finally been settled. Link to a video clip of you calling men who don't marry cowards. Um, well, I'm not trying to marry men. I'm not I'm not I'm not trying to shame them into doing anything. I'm just pointing out the fact. If you say I'm not going to get married because I'm afraid I'm going to get divorced and I'm afraid I'm going to lose some toys. Uh, I mean, I mean that's literally cowardice. They're not willing to take a risk because they're afraid of potential negative consequences. What else would you possibly call it? That's not an attempt at shaming. It's literally describing people who are too frightened to have a relationship with a woman. He says, apparently not everyone got the memo. You won't get young men to marry again until you curb the risk of doing so and put some controls on. Well, except they are. You know, I mean, the funny thing is, I even pointed out, shame won't work. He doesn't even understand that he's agreeing with the point that I made. I made the point back in 2012, and then I made it again in 2024. Shame doesn't and will not work because hypergamy and socioeconomics are stronger forces. At least you would have thought that somebody who's going to get a little pedantic and gamma and that sort of thing would at least recognize the little nod to pedantry that I gave when I said in Western guilt-based cultures. Shame does work in shame-based cultures. It works in places like Japan. I don't know about China, but shame does not work and really has never worked in the West. You know, the problem when you committed adultery and they put the scarlet A on your chest, it wasn't about whether you felt ashamed or not. It was because nobody would have anything to do with you. They literally wouldn't trade with you. They wouldn't employ you. You know, that's where you align the socioeconomic and the shame and the force of shame, right? Um, anyhow, it's but yeah, it's clearly the Substack is already clearly uh, making its value known, which is good. Um, so anyhow, it'll be interesting to see whether uh, we're able to keep people at least reasonably coherent with regards to the SSH. But here's the thing. Um, there was a comment earlier here. He says, Charlie Foxtrot says, the SSH is a mutable idea that without doctrine will be distorted by heretics into an unrecognizable form. Well, it will, but it doesn't matter. You know, first of all, you're always going to get the special smart boys who see that somebody laughed at a joke, so they have to go up to the microphone and repeat it. Of course, they can't remember it exactly, so they don't repeat it quite right, and then they're surprised that nobody laughs because, well, they laughed when he said it. They don't realize that they're just repeating it again, right? Um, But he says this is why we definitely need an authoritative book. Here's the thing: the SSH exists, the profiles exist, the behavioral patterns exist. I'm not writing fantasy, I'm not writing science fiction. I am writing what I and you and everybody else can readily observe. I've been working on the chapter of the SSH in literature. I'm literally providing examples from ancient works like the Iliad, from cultures as far and as different from ours as Heian, Japan, which is 1100 years ago. The truth is self-evident. The SSH is the truth. The labels don't matter. You know, it doesn't matter that Bravo is not a Greek term. It doesn't matter that Gamma is supposed to come before Delta. I mean, I don't know how I could make the point about the titles being irrelevant any more clearly than by mixing the languages and the order. You know, there's a subtext there. Don't get invested in the name. Remember, it's not like Sigma is a naturally cool name and Gamma is a naturally lame one, right? They have come to be perceived as cool or as negative because of what they're being used to describe. Gay was never an insult until homosexuals adopted it in an attempt to have a more positive subtext to their behavior in the way that they were perceived. It didn't work because the positivity or negativity of a term derives from what it is used to describe. You know, that's the way language works. And so terms that are only descriptors are going to be positive or negative on the basis of what they are describing. Yeah, gamma rays used to make superheroes. You know, it was a cool sci-fi term. You know, anyhow, it's a yeah, crippled, handicapped, disabled, differently abled, and now it's just special. You know, yeah, I mean, even the word special, which used to be very positive, has now become, you know, a rather humorous negative term because it was adopted by the crippled. You know, now people, when somebody says something stupid, they talk about them, you know, riding the special bus. You know, I mean, there's a although, you know, you have to respect Jose Mourinho, who was a one-man program for returning the term special to its proper meaning. um, there's these series of commercials that were pretty funny for some betting thing, and and he's like petting his Weimaraner. He says, "Who is a special boy? You're right, it's me." I know if you're not familiar with European soccer, um, Jose Mourinho is uh, one of the most hilarious people in the world. Um, he's just utterly arrogant beyond all belief. And um, anyhow, if you get a chance, uh, look up Jose Mourinho interviewing himself. It was pretty epic. topped only by the time that he sent out uh, a junior assistant weightlifting coach and a player who hadn't played for the team for months, um, and hadn't even spoken to him in months. And because he was required by FIFA to send someone out to get interviewed, so he sent these two people out who had no idea and no authority, and just uh, it was hilarious. Anyhow, um, yeah, Jose Mourinho. Uh, I don't know enough about him to be certain, but I would suspect that uh, he's probably a Sigma. I mean, his his total his total lack of concern for what anybody thinks except for himself is pretty epic. Um, I mean, when I'm sitting there, when I'm sitting there going, "Wow, he's really arrogant," it's got to be bad. But um, anyhow, I'm glad that so many of you have, how many of you have actually subscribed to the Substack, the Sigma Game Substack yet? Has anybody here done that? Because I was really surprised that you know it's like moving up on 1,000 subscriptions. These are free subscriptions too, by the way. Um, I think it's like already moving up on 1,000 subscriptions, uh, which I was talking to uh, a friend who is also on Substack, and he said that it was that was pretty quick. So, and pretty well. Well, thanks to all of you who have subscribed. For the rest of you who haven't subscribed yet, give it a shot. It doesn't cost anything, and it's something to think about, because I think what really drives the traffic there is the way that they've got the email attached. So um, via RSS, yeah. So anyhow, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. It'll be interesting to see uh, how much it breaks out into the mainstream. Now, Substack has announced that it's going to start like kicking Nazis off, so uh, which is not a problem for me, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see how quickly they expand um, the range of unacceptable thoughts and unacceptable concepts. So um, I think it, I think it's uh, pretty vanilla as these things go, but we'll see. They call me Cordell sends the first super chat. Thank you. Uh, Thank you, Cordell. Do you plan to link Sigma Game articles to the main blog when it's relevant? No, I don't think so. Um, I mean, I think that most of the stuff that's on Sigma Game is going to be, uh, relatively obvious. Um, I don't think that the readers at VP um, are going to be surprised by anything that appears on the Substack, that appears on Sigma Game. And obviously, if you're interested in both, then just subscribe to it and you'll get the emails with the alerts and so forth. Um, I set up Alpha Game separately from VP very intentionally, and I think that that was the right thing to do. It was effective. One thing that I'm going to try to actually embrace is we're going to, I think, do a bit more question and answer stuff. We may get to the point where once a week, you know, maybe the once a week we do a Sigma stream and we talk about uh, those subjects specifically, which of course frees us the rest of the time to not talk about them, which of course is is one of my goals. I have other interests, um, and I'm not that terribly interested in, you know, hearing from a bunch of deltas who suspect that maybe they might be an alpha because a cheerleader smiled at them once, you know. And also, I've learned over the years to value that which works. You know, we Cernovich was the one who taught me, if something's not working, stop pushing it, and if something is working, do more of it. And one of the things that I just didn't do that I probably should have done is instead of just shutting Alpha Game down, I probably should have written the book then. You know, um, but I didn't feel comfortable really committing to doing another book when I hadn't finished A Sea of Skulls. Now that I'm older, and now that I'm frankly more conscious of being older, and more conscious of how much time was wasted. I mean, if you think about it, 2017, we're in 2024. I mean, I essentially, I wouldn't say entirely, but I essentially wasted a lot of uh, time that could have been productively used writing wise just because I didn't get A Sea of Skulls finished and I didn't want to fully commit to something else. I mean, we got some stuff done in between then, obviously, the whole comics thing and whatever. But um, but the SSH book is something that I really do have to get out, and fortunately, it's already half done. Um, I suspect that it'll be done by March. We'll probably also in March have a crowdfund that will support both the SSH book and the Hypergamos book, and so that should be exciting. Um, and In fact, we would probably do it now, except for the fact that I'm not willing to do it until we actually ship uh, Alt Hero Q and the first volume of Midnight's War. So that's what we're working on. Anyhow, that's all I've got for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Glad my voice held up. The next Darkstream, we will finish the 2023 reading list, and hopefully we'll have an announcement or two. In case you haven't noticed yet, um, the Castalia Library January-February book is Losing Military Supremacy by Andrei Martynov. It's an excellent book. Um, it's one that even if you don't subscribe to the library, you might want to consider picking up if we have any left. Um, just a very, very impressive book by a very, very uh, quality observer. The next four books to ship are Volume 2, or Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the Cambridge Medieval History to the History subscribers. Um, the Junior Classics 7 and 8 Leather to those backers. Right now we're working on the final touches of uh, Pride and Prejudice and the Landmark Thucydides. Yeah, Arts of War uh, is behind because I need to finish getting the interior illustrations done and together, but that's very high on my list now that Sea of Skulls is done. So um, that one, Arts of War being delayed is entirely my fault, just to be clear. That being said, it's definitely going to be worth it. So just as always, sit tight. We will deliver it, and you will be happy with the wait. I mean, I know it's irritating, but these things take time. You don't get the quality that we're doing without that. For example, we could get started on the Iliad and the Odyssey right now, except for the fact that we haven't nailed down the bindings or the hubbings. We're trying two different approaches. Um, we Both of them might work, and we're also shooting for like a Franklin Library quality, not an Easton quality. But I know it's painful, and I know it's irritating to wait, but I think we've proven, whether it's from Sea of Skulls, etc., that things are usually worth the wait. Sunlight, join the library thing, or at least go to library thing. There's a link on the sidebar. It'll tell you what's up. So, anyhow, thanks for tuning in. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.